my presentation today, I'll be talking about the mitigation of the urban sprawl. In recent years, we have seen an immense increase in our population, seeing that it has been growing by the millions in recent years. And so the main problem that we have addressed in recent years, seeing that our population has grown, is that where are we going to house many of the new people coming into our population? And that is where cities come into the equation. Why might we need cities is that cities have the potential to house millions of people in lots of concentrated areas. Because of the nature, cities are being built upwards instead of outwards to conserve as much space as possible. And this is going to make it much easier to keep a lot of people in close proximities, limiting the amount of area that we are using. And we can use that area to keep expanding cities and provide housing to the future generations. And so, because the population is spreading very fast, what you might want to know is that how fast is it spreading now? In the stimulus article by Mark R. Montgomery about the modern urbanization, we can see that about 86% of the population in developing countries are going to be eventually living in urban areas. This shows how much of the urban area is spreading right now and how much people are going to be living in it soon. So seeing that urbanization is a very big part of our potential future, I was thinking, how much of a necessity will urban areas be? I was wondering to myself, could there be any other way that we can house all these billions upon billions of people without using cities? And I started to invest more time researching into urban areas to see what they're all about. And the problem that I saw come up a lot when I was researching this topic was that urban areas have many negative impacts on our health. So what I come up with is that we should mitigate the spread of urban sprawl because of the laundry list of negative impacts it has on our health. The negative impacts on our health that I'll be talking about today is that cities can bring upon increased risk of illnesses due to the compact nature of it and having people in close proximity of each other, the increased risk of mental health issues, the poor sanitation that can be shown in developing countries, and also the pollution. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is increased chance of illness and health issues. The first thing I would like to talk about is that infectious diseases have a more likely chance of spreading in urban areas due to the fact that there are millions upon millions of people practically piled on top of each other due to how close they are, due to how they are living. Because cities are being built upwards instead of outwards and being as space conservative as possible, there's going to be people walking along the streets in large and very close proximity. But what this has the chance of is that diseases that can go airborne have a likelier chance to spread due to the fact that it doesn't take much time for it to travel. The next health issue that urban areas can bring is the fact that the availability of fresh foods is much lower than it would be in suburban and rural areas. As seen in New York City, many fast food restaurants are being built up rather than farmers markets due to the convenience of the fast food restaurants, and because cities are trying to be as convenient as possible in close proximities. And the last health issue I'd like to talk about in this slide is the fact that carbon dioxide emissions are having a big negative health impact on us. Because many cars and many industrial buildings are being built in these urban areas, it is releasing high amounts of CO2. And this is going to cause many respiratory issues in our future, seeing that there's a large amount of carbon dioxide in the air. The next health issue I'd like to talk about is the mental aspect of our health. Because cities have the around-the-clock busyness, and as Frank Sinatra puts it, cities that never sleep, what we can see here is the constant bombardment of all of our senses. The auditory senses is being constantly bombarded with the chaos of bustling traffic and people constantly trying to get around work. And this has been associated with many mental health issues. The next part is that the fact that the difference between economic classes. It's very clear in certain areas that there's a large difference between the more wealthy side of cities and the more impoverished sides of cities. What this can cause is social isolation, which has been associated in many research studies to be associated with schizophrenia. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the potential for children growing up in cities. Seeing that cities will likely become a large part of our future, many children are going to have a likelier chance of growing up in these new cities. But what problem is presented with this is that children aren't going to be exposed to many green or many natural scenes in the environment. And this has been shown in articles to cause many developmental issues which lead to mental health issues in the future of those children's lives. The last issue I'd like to talk about is the fact that, especially in developing countries, is the poor sanitation. What we can see here is that many people in these urban areas are in practically inhospitable homes. There are many problems with lead pipes leaking, causing to diseases that can be attributed to their housing situations. We can also see the fact that there's many problems with water sanitation because there's millions of people connected to the pipes, and there's practically open. The water pipes are open to the elements, which is causing a lot of diseases to be transmitted through the water. And the last thing is that the inequality of high healthcare facilities, because in cities there's a large difference between the impoverished people getting low quality healthcare and low quality facilities for their health, and compared to the high quality facilities. And what this shows is the fact that many people in impoverished areas will be exposed to many of these dangerous conditions that are going to lead to many health issues in their future. The solution that I came up with is that we should be turning our cities into green cities. And what this means is that we should change many of the parts of these cities to make them more environmentally friendly. The first thing that I found through my research is that we should be changing cities from more metropolitan areas that encourage car driving to go through the cities, and encourage cities to be built for more walking so that we can eliminate the CO2 emissions. And then we can also be adding greenery through potential rooftop gardens, and that will also allow many natural ingredients and natural seeming environments to be shown through the urban areas. And then what this will happen eventually, if we start going for green cities, it will eliminate lots of the forms of pollutions, eliminating the cars, which are a large source of noise pollution, and then also the air pollution. And this solution is plausible due to the fact that it's cost friendly. It's not going to take much money to implement these rooftop gardens, and the fact that it's also going to be cost friendly to eliminate the cars and just promote walking in general. And this is going to create a more generally healthy population in cities. And the reason why I chose this over just not doing anything in the first place and just stopping cities in general was because of how controversial it would be to completely wipe out the use of urban areas. In conclusion, what I found through my research and all of this is that we can create a compromise. Instead of just completely stopping the production of cities and completely wiping out cities, which would be a more controversial point, we can create green cities, which would compromise with both sides and create a more environmentally friendly area without disrupting the peace in certain countries. And then what I also learned is that we need to put much more equity in our health systems. We need to be making sure that there's no social isolations due to the fact that there are differences in economic standings in cities, and the fact that we should also be providing equal health care opportunities like facilities to the poor and to the wealthier people. And then overall, we should be putting health first over the spread of these urban areas. We shouldn't be trying to focus on increasing the spread of urban areas over our well-being of our health. Thank you.